folks, time to service the E36 M3. You'll see I have a selection of parts in front of me there, nothing too fancy, but just enough to give the car a good service. You see at the back there, I've got 10 litres of oil. Doesn't quite need that amount, but it's better value getting the 5 litres in one go. I am using, as you can see, the Silkolene Pro Race S and 5W40. Again, without getting into arguments with the internet, that is the grade that the E36 M3 came with when it was new. The 1060 stuff was for the E46 M3. Speak to a few specialists, you'll get opinions in both, but as far as I'm concerned, the E36 M3 needs a 5W40, certainly for road use anyway. Then we've got spark plugs. Obviously we need 6. Big fan of NGK spark plugs. You can see the part number there, PKR7A, and the individual NGK part number is 3641, and as mentioned we need 6 there, so the other 2 is just hiding here. Then we've got an OE oil filter there. Again, nothing fancy. Good OE oil filter is hard to beat. One of the big advantages of getting the OE filters is you get the O-rings for things like the sump plug and the oil filter housing, and the big rubber ring that goes under the oil filter housing there as well. Then we also have one commonly missed item, possibly less so now because it's quite a known about thing, the Vanos filter there. If I show this in a little more detail, you'll see it's like a threaded screw with a little filter element in the end. I'll show you this as I do it, but basically this clicks onto the front of the Vanos system, and obviously the oil runs through it and it provides filtration for it. And that little bag there is just a little O-ring for the filter itself to help it seal. Then last but not least, we obviously have the air filter. I'm just sticking with an OE air filter, not really chasing any performance upgrades or anything on the car, trying to keep things original and as it should. Yeah, we'll get stuck in with this. Now I have the M3 warm, it's ran up to temperature, time to drain out the oil and go from there. Okay folks, I now have the M3 lifted up into the air. Now the next stage is to get access into the sump. You may not be able to see this too clearly, but there's a full under tray in the E36 M3s, certainly from sort of the sump and the steering rack backwards, covering sort of halfway through the exhaust. And there is an access panel just over there where that will expose the sump bolt or plug, which you can just take off, and it saves you having to take off the whole under tray. While I've removed a couple of the screws, I tend to take off the full under tray, more because when you do that access panel, if there's any drips or the rain catches it, it tends to just collect into the under tray and then spill out and cause a mess. So I take off the whole under tray. It's only a few bolts, and get it all removed and go from there. But I'll show you, once I get the under tray off, we'll show you where all the bolts and nuts and stuff are, and that should allow us to make a bit of progress. Okay, I've finally got the under tray off. Just giving you a quick overview of where all the nuts and bolts are in this under tray. It only took me a few minutes, so don't think this adds any major time to doing a quick oil service. Anyway, you can see the 2 main bolts there at the front, just in these 2 holes here. You have bolt holes here as well. You have this little open-ended sort of hole there. It's like one of those self-threading washer jobbies that you don't have to totally remove the washer. It's like a washer with a hex head on it, pretty much. That there is attached in there. This is where your sump plug's going to be, so you can see I've got one of the screws out there, another screw there, another screw there, and that panel comes off separately to the whole under tray if you do so wish. You also have 2 screw holes here, just over there, and then along this side here, 1, 2 and 3, and then one hole there as well. For the sake of a few bolts, take the whole thing off, and if you're like me, you'll maybe want to give that a quick clean as well. And yeah, that gives you full access, and like I say, it means when you do change the oil, you don't have it covering if it spills or a drip goes somewhere. It doesn't fill up the under tray with oil. Okay folks, you'll see I'm at the sump plug here, just pointing to it with my index finger. That disgracefully rusty bolt there. I've also cheated and loosened it, so I'm not huffing and puffing while I'm trying to remove the sump bolt. Short story is, it's loosened. That was a 17mm bolt. So now I am ready to loosen this bolt and drain the oil. Hopefully this doesn't cover the camera at the same time. There you go, that's the oil draining. You can always get a sense of achievement when you don't end up with hot oil all the way up your arm, so I'll see that as a win. I'll leave that to drain now for a few minutes. And what I'll also do, I'll run up to the engine bay and loosen the oil filler cap and things like that there, and let the oil drain out. Okay, time to do as mentioned and unlist the filler cap, which is done. That should help relieve some of the wee pressure, so that should help it drain out a bit quicker. I'll also loosen this oil cap bolt and relieve the pressure in it as well. It's a 13mm bolt, by the way. Okay, that's this. I'll get a bit of blue roll to store the oil cap in and just sort of cover over that so nothing gets into it, and take out the bolt and do the same with it, more to keep any dirt out of the engine and at least store all the bolts and stuff in a safe place. You can see there the sort of length of the bolt. It is pretty long. Give it a good clean, and you can see there just at the end of the bolt that black ring, so a O-ring that you get with your service kit. And also at the end of the bolt under the head is a washer, and that is the metal washer that you get with it. It's the smaller of the two from memory. There we go, inside the oil filter housing cap. You can see the O-ring around the outside of it there. That is the black O-ring that goes along with. And you can see in the background there the oil filter. I'm just going to give this oil filter a tug and get it removed. Got a spare bit of blue roll ready to lift this out of the way. Obviously trying not to spill any over the engine. Go. Okay, I've now got the oil filter in hand. What I'm going to do now is install the new oil filter. First thing to do is give the housing a good clean. Make sure there's no dirt obviously around the outside of it. Just give it a wipe, and then take out the oil filter. Not to drop anything at the same time. The oil filter goes in right and upwards, and you leave the bit of paper on. Quite a few people ask about that. Don't know what the extra idea is behind it, but you leave the bit of paper on and it basically drops down in like so. There's nothing to it, there's no clicks or anything required. It just sort of sets down, and the pressure of that bolt pulling the lid down holds it tight, and there's a rubber O-ring at the bottom and top of them to seal anyway against the bottom and the lid of the actual oil filter housing, so that obviously holds the oil pressure. Next stage is to look at getting things like the bolt ready, new washer at under the head, new O-ring there, and then the cap that I have over there on the far side, get the O-ring put into it. Okay folks, time to start prepping the oil filter retaining bolt. There's a washer and an O-ring in this, so you'll see there, if the camera's clear enough, using a set of picks, pick off the O-ring. This wants to come. There we go, that's the O-ring off, and then there's a washer beneath the head of this bolt. Once this gets loosened, it'll come off. There we go. Zip this, and it just falls off. Okay, now to give this a quick clean. Generally I give it a quick run over with brake cleaner, get it all cleaned up, make sure there's no dirt on it, and then put on the new O-ring and washer. Okay, and now as mentioned, a quick blast with brake cleaner to get this good and clean. Okay, and give this a wee rinse and wipe. That looks good and clean. And just to save any confusion, I'll put the old washer and O-ring out of the way here. Don't want to put the old ones back on, then onto the pack that comes with the OE filter. So if I open this and get the washer first of all and put it on. Like so. And the O-ring as well. And what I always do, as everybody says, good advice, never going in dry. A wee bit of lube always helps, and anything the lube can make it difficult to get on. There we go. Really the lube's there just to sort of help you put the O-ring on without tearing it. You can see that's the bolt pretty much good to go. Now it's time to move on to the oil filter housing cap and put that large O-ring on it and go from there. Okay, you can see I'm back with the oil filter housing. So again, using a pick up the O-ring, much easier than the last one. Catch any of the excess oil and give it a quick wipe. Keep it clean. And then put a brake cleaner. Hopefully that didn't soak the camera. see it is pretty clean in here anyway, but just for good measure, giving everything a good clean. More than anything, making sure there's a good seal in there, no dirt or anything like that. Okay, looks dead on. Okay, time for the large O-ring to go in here now. Okay, and same thing again, get some lube. You can, of course, if you don't have any good lubricant like that, just use oil. Same principles, exactly the same effect. Make sure there's no mist bits. As you can see, it's a bit windy today, things are blowing everywhere. Yeah, it's a good coating of the lube there. And that's set in, making sure it's pressed in properly. It's only really a set in fit, there's no fancy clicks or anything like that. And yeah, that's pretty much both the oil filter housing cap and the bolt there, good to go. So next stage is to get these installed and tighten up the sump plug as well. You can see there, I've got the sump plug, so same sort of treatment for it. All you're really doing is making sure it's clean, or well, there's no dirt in it. You can see the washer there, that's getting removed and thrown away. If I remember right, I think this is a fairly new sump bolt. I think it's one of the last time I serviced the car, it did get a new one from memory. Okay, that's good and clean. So now the last item in this bag here is the copper washer. So that goes on like so. And you'll see it's slightly beveled. If I was to show you that, it's a slightly, as I would say, a wavy washer. That way it doesn't sit flat, so really whenever you tighten up the sump bolt, it crushes down that bit. Obviously being a soft metal just helps it make a good seal. Yeah, and that's pretty much good to go, and that's the next thing I will install. Okay, time to put the sump bolt in. You can see there is still a few drips coming out, but certainly the bulk of the oil is out. So giving that a quick wipe down, making sure it's clean, threading in the sump bolt with washer. Obviously, as you can see, I'm just obviously starting the thing by hand, making sure it's not threaded, and if there is any resistance, you know, don't force it. You know, turn it back out, making sure the bolt goes in straight. Okay, folks, that is the sump bolt in. It's only hand tight, so I'm going to get my torque wrench and tighten it down. Obviously, it's something just to be careful you don't over tighten. Very common thing, and I can honestly testify these things are not cheap to replace. So look up the torque specs, get it tightened down, and go from there. Okay folks, time to start tidying things up now. I'm getting ready to fill up the oil. So oil cap there is good and clean, so that is going to get installed. Okay, it's tight. Now, taking off this cover for the oil filter, what I like to do is, and it is a very good idea, is to prime the oil filter. So what I'm going to do is fill it with oil slightly and try not to make a mess on camera as well. Basically the idea is that when you start the engine, it does mean that the oil filter has oil around it and in it, so there isn't going to be any air pockets or bubbles or things like that there. So I will start filling up the housing now. I'm just going to grab a quick funnel here. Okay, there's the funnel in. I'm actually going to slightly fill up the oil system through this funnel as well. I can actually see the level of the oil just round the side of the oil filter just starting to come up, and you should actually see the paper of the oil filter start to get wet as well. Okay, I'm fairly happy now that the oil filter has stacks of oil around it. I don't know how well that'll come out in camera, but I could see the oil level creeping up, and you can see the darker red there. There's a couple of dry patches still on it, but it's certainly getting wet and the oil level's creeping up onto it, which is fine. I'm going to leave that as it is, and we've obviously to fill up the rest of the oil system anyway, so there's stacks of oil around the oil filter, so that's only a good thing. And you can see the level will keep dropping down. Don't be concerned of that. There is actually a drain valve in the system, so that'll be draining back down into the sump. So you're filling up the oil system anyway that way, so it's all good. So what I will do now is get the cap and the bolt and all and get things tightened up that way. Okay folks, time to install the oil filter housing cap and the bolt obviously that attaches it onto the housing. You'll see there I have also smeared a little bit of oil around the rubber O-ring at the top just to help it seal so it's not dry. So I'll grab the cap now. Obviously there's the cap there with the O-ring of course installed. So that just sets on like so. And time to get the bolt that attaches it down as well. Which is there. Okay, you see it drop down that bit further. And obviously just do it by hand, making sure you're not threading anything or causing any issues for yourself. Okay, that's it, roughly as tight as I'll get with my fingertips. Time to get your torque wrench and tighten that down. And obviously again, like the sump bolt, you don't want to over tighten that and cause yourself grief. Okay, the next step is the commonly forgotten about Vanos filter. And on this E36 M3 Evo, this is a dual Vanos system. The filter is this little Allen bolt there that I have the Allen key in. Obviously the E46 M3s have the filter in the end of this bolt here, but in this model of car, that is where the filter is. And if I undo this, you can see there isn't a great deal of torque behind it, and there's an O-ring as well at the back. So that's it, fairly loose. I'm going to get a bit of blue roll just beneath it to catch any oil that may well drip out here. Okay, you can see that's the filter removed there. No real debris of any concern in there, which is obviously a good sign. That's exactly what you want. I have removed and replaced a few on the later model M3 engines and found that there was gunk in the Vanos, which is really not a good sign. But the filter's obviously doing its job. But either way, this filter's getting changed along with the O-ring there as well. Make sure to remove it. We'll get that changed in with a new one. Okay, there's the new Vanos filter and O-ring already installed, as you can see there. So that's just going to go in. Threaded as per usual, just by hand first of all. Okay, that is the Vanos filter installed there. I will now get my torque wrench and tighten it up. Okay folks, time to crack on with getting the car filled up with oil. So next stage is to get the funnel and oil. Time to check the oil level on the dipstick and see where I am. Okay, roughly needs about another half litre. So what I'll do now is put in the half litre of oil, start the car and check for leaks. Most of us can do that. Okay folks, that's the engine running now. Just after filling up the oil, checking the sump plug isn't leaking, etc, etc. So leave the oil to run. Stop the engine, check the level again, make sure everything's okay. But before I do that, we'll put the under tray on. There's no leaks, so I think we're good to go. But I'll let the car cool down again and check the level just to be 100% sure the levels are all a-okay. Yeah, everything seems to be okay from an oil point of view. So now time to move on to the air filter, which is just over here. And we'll get moving with that. I think what I'll do is, so I'll get the under tray on, put the car back into the garage, and I can do the air filter, etc. in the garage. And as you can hear, the engine itself sounds absolutely spot on. The Vanos, people complain about making a bit of noise. As you can hear, there's no real noise off it, so she's a good honest straight car that way. And doing things like the Vanos filter helps a great deal. It's just a basic maintenance item. For a few quid, throw a new one in. But yeah, on to getting the under tray fitted and throw the car into the garage and go from there. Okay, the next job is to look at the air filter. Really easy job to remove and replace this. So literally just push those two clips in at each side and lift up. Simple as that. And you can see there's the air filter, both sides. You can see it's fairly clean for one fly there. Obviously don't do too many miles in this thing, but that's it, very clean. So I can cast that aside. Actually pick up any dirt that's in the airbox. Two leaves. Otherwise it's very clean. So just set that like that. Open up the new air filter. And set it in to 2000. Making sure the rubber lip goes down past, goes slightly past that wee bit of plastic there. That's popped in. So slide this in. That clips in. That clips in. Job done. It's as simple as that. Okay, now on to the next job, which is the spark plugs. So in this case I'm using aftermarket bolts. This is a 5mm hex to get these off. Okay folks, now that the coils are exposed, time to remove two nuts that hold on the coils in place. I think you might have to remove the wiring connectors as well from memory, so we can do all of that as well. Okay, time to remove the coils here. So first protocol, lift up all of these clips that hold the wiring plugs onto the coils. Simply a case of lifting them up, holding that up with your finger and pulling on the wire. See, that's it, disconnected. Next one, and just work your way along. Done. And the last one. There we go. You see that's all 6 disconnected. And time to using a 10mm or M6 socket, remove the nuts that hold the actual coils on. just going to go through and loosen each one of these. Okay, that's them all loose, and time I'll remove my extension to get to the one at the back here as well. Okay, time to remove these nuts then by my fingers for speed. Halfway there. Last few. Okay, time to remove the actual coils now. These are just a sort of slight pressure fit, so get both your fingers firmly under them. You see, you can slide your fingers down and curl them up, pop them out. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Looking a bit closer down some of these holes, you should be able to see the spark plugs way at the bottom of those holes down there. Okay, now onto the spark plugs. This is a 16mm spark plug socket, nothing fancy, and everybody asks what's the difference between a normal socket and a spark plug socket. Possibly can't quite see down into it there, but basically there's a wee rubber washer inside a spark plug socket, and the idea is that it will catch and hold on to the spark plug. So because ultimately you're putting the socket down into a large hole, you want to actually hold the spark plug and be able to remove it. Okay, there is the first spark plug there. Okay, and you'll see I hold it like so. That's what the rubber washer does, holds the spark plug in the socket, just creates a wee seal. So I'll continue doing that down through the next remaining 5 spark plugs, get them all removed and replace. Okay, there's the second spark plug. Okay, time for the last spark plug. As you can see, there isn't a great deal of clearance up here, so I've just dropped it down by hand. I'm going to turn this, make life a bit easier. There we go, the last spark plug. Okay folks, you can see I have the 6 spark plugs all set out, ready to go in. My next tip is to, just for the threads, give them a coating in some sort of dielectric grease. The idea behind this is really to improve the contact between the spark plug and the head. One of the comments, you can read into this as much as you like, copper grease, while it will stop the corrosion, it can reduce the head, heat transfer into the head between the spark plug and the head. It's up to yourself, we're getting into fairly anal stuff here, but I always use a dielectric grease, and you obviously don't need loads of this, just a couple of light dollops and smear it in. Just get all the plugs ready just for the light coating. Okay, that's the sort of first initial threads started with it. Okay, that's pretty much them. Good to go. And now what I will do is hand thread these spark plugs into the head. Okay, gonna thread in the first spark plug, and you put it in the wrong way, like so. As you can see, it stays in. So dropping this down, in, trying to get it going in straight, drop it down. And what I always do is I will loosen or turn anti-clockwise, making sure it's not catching in any threads, then start turning in clockwise to tighten it. both hands for speed. Okay, time to continue with the others. Okay, if you're a little special like me, you'll also want to torque everything using a torque wrench. So, time to torque the first one. One. Two. Three. Four. Five. Just take the extension off for this. And six. Okay, that's all the spark plugs in and tightened to the manufacturer's specification. Okay, my next tip is with the coil here, giving it a quick tight wipe down with a rag that's got a quick spray of WD-40 on it, just to keep it clean. Give it a quick wipe down, and good as that. And I will then drop it back into place. And try not to drop any wires. And continue on with the rest of them. Okay, time for the last coil. Done. Then, making sure they're all seated A-OK, plug the connectors back in. Noting, to get them in, you will need to fully lift up the metal clasp, and you'll see when you do it, it'll work out okay. show you one a little more detail. See, lifting that up completely. That little notch has to go up in there. So it slides in, push the metal clip down at the same time, job done. And the next one as well here. See if I can do this one-handed. In, push it down, clipped. And the last one. In, down, clipped, done. And obviously I will make sure none of the wires are caught. So that all seems fine. Then it is going to be time for the nuts on each one of the coils to get installed. Okay, time to put the nuts onto the coils here. Next week. There we go, that's all the nuts installed now. Just need to nip these up a wee bit with the ratchet, and that is pretty much the job done. Obviously the cover will go on as well. And yes, if you're like me, you can be extra special and torque the nuts to your manufacturer's torque setting as well, which, as you can imagine, for these things is not very tight at all. Done. Time to get the extension to go a bit quicker. And time to put the cover back on now as well. Obviously being fairly careful to try not to scratch the thing as well. There we go. And using the Allen key, tighten them up nicely. Just give them a wee nip. They obviously don't need to be massively tight. Okay, that's pretty much us done. You can obviously now start the car, but that's the plugs done and the full service pretty much complete. So yeah, happy motoring and enjoy.